Hey everyone, we're back here for session 2, and I'm so excited that you're just leaning in. And this is going to be just a great session for you in our Overflow marriage study. So here's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about how to be overflowing in our personalities. And I think about this of how opposites attract and how we react. That just speaks so much to the different personalities. The reality is we got to stop and remember, God has given us a spouse for a purpose. He's given us a spouse that in a lot of ways is going to have a different personality than us. They're going to think about things. They're going to talk about things in different ways. They're going to react to things in different ways. And so sometimes we get frustrated in those differences, but the reality is that God really wants us to celebrate that. He wants us to see how those personalities are there for a purpose. So let's talk about that. Think about this. If you had to rank how you and your spouse are doing from 1 to 5, okay, I'm going to give you some things. And what I want you to do, just sitting there with your spouse, is I want you just to hold up a finger, okay? And it's going to be either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? This is just kind of a simple way, but I want you just to rank how you think that you and your spouse are doing in these certain areas, okay? I'm going to just read them off for you. 1, communication. All right, so after I said communication, you and your spouse should have held up a hand, and you're either saying 1, that you're doing really good, or 5, that you're doing really bad, okay? So 1 is good, 5 is bad. Communication, hold up your hand on that. All right, here's the second one, decision making. How are you guys doing in decision making? Stop and think about that, 1 to 5, okay? All right, now here's what you're probably starting to notice is that you and your wife are maybe holding up some different numbers, and that's okay. That's really good. All right, here we go. Number 3, moments of conflict. How are you and your wife doing in moments of conflict? Are you doing really good? Are you doing bad? Maybe kind of in the middle, whatever you want to do. All right, here we go. Number 4, responsibilities around the house. Here we go. All right, responsibilities around the house. So you feel like you're doing really good, you're doing bad. 1 to 5 here. Here's the next one, being around other people. Being social. How are you guys doing on that? And here's the last thing I would just say, completing tasks. Completing tasks. How are you and your wife doing on completing tasks? It's kind of interesting when we stop and we think about how our personalities kind of are revealed in different ways, right? But we have to remember, God has made us with our personalities. He's given these things. Now, sometimes our personalities can be formed and they can be transformed by different things that are within our lives in that, and they just we see different things that are just influencing us, influencing our personalities, but God gave us that. And so once again, we need to learn how to celebrate that with our spouse. And so what I want to show you real quickly is 4 areas that sometimes our personalities are revealed within our marriages. And just kind of 4 areas. Some of these are positive, some of these are going to be negative, okay? But these are just 4 areas. Now, are they the only areas? No. But I think these are just 4 key areas that I think we can see from Scripture that God has given us that help us just to understand our personalities, and they're going to help you with your spouse. So here's the first thing, decision making. Decision making. All right, and here's the 2 areas that I believe that the majority of us fall into when it comes to decision making. One of you, more than likely, is a discerner. You want to stop, you want to think about things. The other person is a doer. Okay, now let's kind of think about this. Genesis chapter 24, we really kind of see this with Isaac and Rebekah. Now, if you remember Isaac was Abraham's son, okay? And then Abraham, what he did is he sent his servant to go and find a wife for Isaac, right? Go out, find a wife for my son, bring her back here, right? And so the servant goes out, and it's really just this amazing picture of just God's work behind the scenes of how he was just preparing this. But the servant goes, he finds Rebekah, and Rebekah is basically, she's ready to go. She's ready to do that. But listen to the way in which God describes Isaac and Rebekah in these moments. Listen to what he says. Now Isaac was returning from Beer-lahai-roi, for he was living in the Negev region. All right, verse 63. In the early evening, Isaac went out to walk in the field. This is Genesis chapter 24, verse 63. And looking up, he saw camels coming. So it's early evening, and what is he's doing? He's going out to walk in the field. He's He would do this from time to time. It's just a kind of way to get out and just be with the Lord, right? He's discerning. He's thinking about things. Verse 64, Rebekah looked up, and when she saw Isaac, she got down from her camel. And she asked the servant, who's the man in the field coming to meet us? You have two different personalities that are right there. You have Isaac, that's a discerner, and you have Rebekah. What is she? She's a doer. She's ready to go. She's ready to act. She's ready to do those things. So I think we can kind of see this. Here it is, a decision making. Now, here's the thing. Isaac needs Rebekah, and Rebekah needs Isaac. And so you think about that in your marriage. One of you may be the discerner. One of you may be the doer. You need each other. You see, discerners, sometimes what we can do is we can become paralyzed, right? Doers, sometimes what we can do, well, we can overreact. We can respond too quickly. That's why we need each other. Let me give you three more quick ways in which you can see this, okay? The second thing is in conflict. Conflict. One of you more than likely is a peacemaker. The other person is an agitator. Now, once again, these are kind of revealed in different ways. There was this time whenever Isaac, he was in this conflict with Abimelech, and what did he do? He sought peace with him in Genesis chapter 26. But it's kind of interesting. Isaac's son Esau, he was an agitator, right? And so you could go to Genesis chapter 26, verse 34 to 35. What did it say? Esau married a woman, and it upset Isaac and Rebekah. It was kind of like an intentional jab to get in. You think about that in your conflict that you experience. One of you more than likely is the peacemaker. You want to try and find peace and resolution. One of you as well can sometimes be the agitator. I'm going to push the button on this a little bit. So think about that in conflict. Here's the next thing I want you to think about with me, and that's expression. One of you more than likely is more public in how you express, right? You may be the person when you're walking down the street, you want to hold hands, all those things. Maybe you're the first person to put something on social media whenever it's your anniversary, all those things, okay? But here's the other, some of you as well may be a little bit more private, right? You have a little bit more of a private intimacy. You may not be the person that wants to hold hands out in public, or you're not about PDA or anything. Sometimes that can drive each one of us wild. It can drive each one of us crazy. Whenever we want somebody to be more public in how they're expressing their love, or more private, right? We want to have some more intimate moments. So once again, you kind of stop and you think about how one of you may be in those ways. Jesus even talked about it, though. He looks at sometimes the wrong way that we are expressing things. Sometimes the wrong way that we're expressing things is for everybody to see, right? It's for everybody to, I'm putting on a show for everybody in my marriage. Well, that's not healthy by any kind of means. And sometimes the private person can get in trouble because they're not wanting to express it. Jesus wants us to share the good news. Well, the same thing ought to be about our marriage. We ought to be telling people about our spouse. We ought to be lifting each other up. You think about Proverbs 31. It talks about how a wife, a godly wife, she is praised by her husband. So I want you to think about that. Here's the last thing I want you to think about is motivation. What's our motivation in why we do what we do? Listen, 1 Peter 1:22. Seeing you've purified your souls and obeying the truth through the Spirit unto unfeigned love of the brethren. That picture there of unfeigned love is a picture of that there's no strings that are attached. What's the motivation I think about of why I love my spouse, right? Am I doing something to get only in return? Am I looking only for the reciprocation love? Sometimes that's a 50-50 marriage, and that's not healthy. It's 100% unfeigned love. There's no strings attached. I'm not loving my wife just asking for something in return. No, if I'm to love her as Christ loves the church, I'm loving her 100%. Even whenever she may be 0%. Now, I know that's not happening in us, but the reality is that sometimes in our motivation of why we do what we have to do, we have to think about how we're going to remove the strings of marriage. And here's the thing, the final thing I want you to just think about is, as our personalities work together, we need to be like salt and pepper. I love that illustration from a popular movie and how salt and pepper are never meant to substitute one another. They're meant to complement one another. And that's the way that we need to look at with our marriages and the personalities that God's given us. Is that we're never meant to overbear or to substitute our spouse. Instead, I need to lift her up. We're to complement one another, work together in things. And that's the way that God will use our personalities together for His glory. Thank you guys for tuning in on this. And I look forward to connecting with you on the next session. God bless.